The items that truly meant to Queen Elizabeth are thus given to Lady Louise Windsor. The fact that this music essentially verified what many royal observers had long suspected. That the Queen had a favorite grandchild, and that music wasn't one of the ones generating headlines is the part that no one is really talking about. The irony is that the true conflict here isn't about Louise at all, but rather about Camilla's family's perception of this inheritance and the reasons behind their alleged rage within palace walls. And when you compare what was said to what actually transpired, the timeline of presents, and who was left out, the whole thing begins to look less like a kind, grandmotherly gesture and more like a subtle statement about who the late Queen considered to be the family's future. Before we get into any of that though, if you're new to Crown Watch, please click the subscribe button as soon as possible to ensure that you don't miss any updates on this subject. Okay, let's dissect this. This is what transpired. Following her death in September 2022, Queen Elizabeth II's enormous personal fortune was distributed. Furthermore, I'm not referring about the Crown estate or national property, such as music. I'm referring to her real private property. The castles and private estates music, valued at hundreds of millions, including Balmoral Castle and its 53,000 acres in Scotland and Sandringham House and its 20,000 acres in Norfolk, were acquired by King Charles. The combined value of those properties is around £550 million. That was anticipated. For the monarch, inheritance operates in this manner. Highgrove was given to Prince William along with other anticipated possessions. However, the discreet removal of some of the Queen's most treasured personal belongings was something that many people missed, and that the palace undoubtedly sought to keep low-key. Charles, William, Camilla, her kids and her grandkids did not receive these songs. They visited Lady Louise Windsor. Additionally, some sources claim that Camilla's family is extremely distressed over this. Now, in order to comprehend why this is so important, you must comprehend Louise's true identity within this family, as she has spent her entire life going unnoticed. She is currently 21 years old. She is the daughter of the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Prince Edward and Sophie. According to the 1917 letters patent, she is a princess by birth. The king grants princely dignity to all male-line grandchildren. Thus, Her Royal Highness Princess Louise of Wessex was born. However, when she was born in 2003 music, her parents decided that she and her brother James would instead use courtesy titles. Lady Louise is her name. He was first known as Viscount Severn and then as Earl of Wessex. In an interview with the BBC years ago, Sophie clarified that they wanted their kids to have a more typical existence so they could realize that they would probably need to work for a living. The problem is that Louise might have claimed her princess title when she turned 18 in November 2021. She was legally permitted to do so. She decided against it. William met Kate at the University of St. Andrews, where she currently attends. During the summer, she worked at a garden center. She became a member of the University Officers Training Corps. She uses the name Mountbatten Windsor to compete in carriage driving. She has essentially been leading a very deliberate life, in which she enjoys the advantages of being born into a royal family, without having to bear the burdensome burden of official responsibilities. And to be honest, given what happened to Harry and Meghan when they attempted to live independent lives while retaining their royal titles, that decision has likely made her more powerful than if she had accepted the title. The reaction was vicious. The family became split up. The British press was still on their backs when they arrived in California. Gaz Louise chose early on to be just Louise, avoiding all of that. She participates in troop events. As the sole non-working royal present, she was on the balcony in 2024 music with the Wales children. She attracts attention without creating any drama. At the age of 21, she is striking a very challenging balance in music. However, the true basis for all of this extends far beyond her time in college. Her relationship with her grandparents is the root of it. This is the point at which the narrative becomes truly captivating. Over the years, a number of royal insiders have claimed that Queen Elizabeth II had a favorite grandchild, and it wasn't Eugenie, Beatrice, William, or Harry. Lady Louise Windsor was there. Back in 2019, a royal insider told the Sun-Za that the Queen had grown especially close to Louise, who appeared to be her favorite grandchild, and that she appreciated that Louise and James enjoyed music their time in Balmoral. Louise's birth was difficult, according to Joe Little, the editor of Majesty magazine, who spoke with Hello Music. After her mother Sophie experienced a severe health crisis, she was born 1 month ahead of schedule. She was extremely valuable to her grandparents, because both of them were in danger during the delivery. He claimed that both the Queen and the late Duke of Edinburgh held her in high regard. Royal journalist Rebecca English revealed this adorable detail. The Queen was once observed by a member of the royal entourage watching Mr. Tumble, a children's musical program, with Louise and James. Take a moment to visualize that. Sitting on a couch with her youngest grandkids, the Queen of England, the head of state of several countries, watches a children's TV show. There were no rituals or formalities. Just a grandma, relaxing with the children she obviously loved. Her relationship with her elder grandchildren was very different from that. When Louise Music was born in 2003, William and Harry were already in their teens. Because of the age difference, the Queen might be a more laid-back and informal grandmother to Louise than she could have been when she was younger, and combining the responsibilities of being a working monarch with small children of her own. Prince Philip is another. Before the Queen even passed away, this is where the inheritance saga truly starts. As is customary for senior royals, Prince Philip's will was sealed upon his death in April 2021. However, information regarding who might inherit his personal possessions began to surface. The most unexpected thing was that none of his 4 children, including Charles, William, and Harry, received his most treasured possessions. They visited Louise, his granddaughter. In particular, he bequeathed her his unique 4-wheeled dark green carriage, which had been custom-built to his exact specifications approximately 8 years before to his passing. Additionally, he left her his 2 fallen horses, Not Lost Storm and Balmoral Nevis. You must realize how much carriage driving meant music to Prince Philip in order to comprehend the significance of this. For him, this was more than simply a pastime. In the 1970s, he contributed to the development of competitive carriage driving as a sport in Britain. Up into his 80s, he participated in international competitions. A significant portion of his latter life was shaped by this interest. Balmoral Nevis and Not Lost Storm were the ponies that played music during his funeral. As the funeral procession passed by, they stood inside Windsor Castle. His cap, his whip, his brown gloves, and a red jar filled with sugar lumps that he used to treat the ponies were all placed on the vacant seat of his carriage. This was quite intimate. And Philip decided to leave these things to his 17-year-old granddaughter, who shared his passion for the sport, rather than to his offspring or the future monarch. Louise's grandfather had taught her how to operate carriages. She started competing at the Royal Windsor Horse Show by the time she was in her mid-teens. She also finished second in the British National Carriage Driving Championships in September of 2024. That present wasn't given at random then. The one grandson who truly shared Philip's passion was the one to get the torch. Things got worse once the Queen passed away. The public's attention was drawn to Charles's inheritance, which included the crown, properties, estates, and music. However, Louise apparently acquired important things from her grandmother's collection of horses, and the Queen had secretly made provisions for her personal possessions. The Queen has supported the Fell Pony Society for her entire life. Carlton Lima Emma, a famous pony at Windsor, was one of her favorites. These private present specifics have been kept confidential. However, according to reports, Louise was given things that directly relate to the Queen's private life at Windsor and the surrounding estates. The unique access and esteemed position within those estates came with those goods, and it was even more valuable. According to royal insiders, Louise and her brother James are especially close to Balmoral. Louise didn't inherit Balmoral because the Queen made sure they were always welcome there, but she did inherit a sense of belonging there, which is perhaps more significant in the long term. For Camilla's family, this is where things start to go strange because of the disparity. Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, Camilla's children, are not and will never be royalty. Tom writes about food. He has been quite forthcoming about this. Laura curates art, co-founded London's 11 Gallery, and maintains a fairly quiet profile. He bluntly told People magazine, "We are married in. We are not the royal family." It's adorable that her kids refer to Queen Camilla as Gaga and King Charles as Upa. It demonstrates a strong sense of familial ties. Tom's son Freddie and Laura's twin boys Gus and Louis attended the coronation as Camilla's pages of honor. They participate in family get-togethers. Although they are obviously adored, they are not heirs. Royal treasures are not given to them. They don't continue customs that date back hundreds of years. They are not related by blood, but rather by Camilla's marriage to the monarchy. And in a family where heredity and legitimacy are essentially the whole goal, that distinction is crucial. Now picture yourself as Camilla, who endured years of harsh criticism and demonization as the other woman following Diana's passing. You put a lot of effort into improving your reputation. You helped Charles get through some of the most difficult times in his life. Eventually, you were crowned Queen Consort before becoming simply music's queen. The family now includes your children and grandchildren. They attend the events. They can be seen in the pictures. Charles adores them. But your family receives nothing of that importance when it comes time to disperse the personal belongings of the late Queen and Prince Philip. In the meantime, Philip's beloved carriage and ponies, the Queen's equestrian belongings, and a unique bond with Balmoral are given to Louise, who is 17th in line for the throne and doesn't even use her princess title. That must hurt. It has nothing to do with the money. Presumably, Tom and Laura are doing well financially. Tom's career is music. Laura is in possession of hers. It has to do with what the presents stand for. They stand for legitimacy, permission, and the passing of the torch, which Camilla's side of the family did not receive. The distribution of the Queen's personal goods was a contentious topic, according to sources. The sentimental things became a source of personal conflict, but no one challenges Charles's entitlement to the estates and the substantial assets. To be honest, the fact that this tension is being discussed at all indicates that it was most likely quite serious. Usually, the palace does a great job of keeping these matters under wraps. Now Sophie, Louise's mother, is involved, which adds another level of complexity to the whole affair. The Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie, has been referred to as the Queen's secret weapon and favorite daughter-in-law. Sophie was quietly forging very solid bonds inside the family, while everyone else was preoccupied with Diana and eventually Kate. It was said that she had a close relationship with the Queen. She was trusted by the Queen. Additionally, unlike Camilla's children, Sophie's children, Louise and James, symbolize the continuation of the royal line. By birth, they are royal. They go by the name Mountbatten Windsor. They are in the succession plan. Even when everyone is acting flawlessly in public, that distinction generates a dynamic that is likely always present. Additionally, there is some historical background that provides context. When Sophie made disparaging remarks about many royals to an undercover reporter back in 2001, she became embroiled in a scandal. She was particularly critical of Charles's relationship with Camilla. Since then, both ladies have publicly moved on. Sophie quit her position in public relations to work as a princess full-time. Camilla became queen after marrying Charles. They show up at events together. The same causes are supported by them. They present a cohesive front. However, the dynamics are still complex below, according to author Sean Smith, who authored a book about Sophie titled Sophie Saving the Royal Family. Sophie, who is currently 60 years old, has a special role in bridging the gap between younger people like Kate and elderly people like Camilla and Princess Anne. Critics have pointed out that Sophie's humanitarian efforts, her trips to war zones, her support of victims of sexual assault during hostilities, and her efforts to raise awareness of landmines all resonate with Diana's causes. Naturally, Camilla's former competitor was Diana. Thus, all of these layers of tension and connection between music and history are seething beneath the surface. When the inheritance decisions are made, essentially reveals who the late Queen and Prince Philip considered to be the family's future. And that's the main point of this. It has nothing to do with carriages, horses, or equestrian goods. What those things convey is what matters. Inheritance in royal families is never limited to property or money music. It's its continuity and credibility. It demonstrates who is at the center of the monarchy and who is at its periphery. Both Philip and Elizabeth showed who they trusted, who they felt embodied their beliefs, and who they believed should continue their legacy by giving Louise their personal belongings. Louise's legitimacy was inherited. The grandchildren and children of Camilla did not. Without a doubt, they are a member of the family. They're on the periphery, and that's unlikely to change, even though they're liked and included in music. This leads us to the larger issue, which is the implications of music for the monarchy's future. Richard Eden, a royal expert, recently offered an intriguing forecast. He stated that he hopes Prince William will follow in his grandfather's footsteps and ask his cousins, such as Lady Louise and J Music, to assist with royal tasks when he ascends to the throne. Furthermore, that comment highlights a serious structural issue the monarchy is dealing with. William's generation does not have enough working royals. Harry has stopped participating. Andrew is not without his problems. There are no full-time royal roles for Beatrice and Eugenie. This implies that William, Kate, and eventually, their kids will bear the majority of the load. Louise is in a prime position to fill the void left by the monarchy. She is young, competent, has received military training through the Officers' Music Training Corps, comes from a solid family, has a composed and respectable demeanor, and has already been subtly included into significant occasions. She played a significant role in the military procession at Trooping the Color in 2024. Along with her brother and relatives, she kept watch at her grandmother's grave. These appearances have been seen by royal commentators as clues about her future role. You can therefore understand why Camilla's family could be unhappy when you consider the inheritance, the bond with the late Queen and Prince Philip, the quiet preparation for any future responsibilities, and the contrast with Camilla's family, who are adored but not heirs. It's seeing the wider picture rather than being envious of things. They are not in the center of the royal family's future plans. Louise is. She competes in carriage driving under her family's name, attends university like any other student, works at garden centers during the summer, is a backup, a quiet princess who has chosen to blend in, and may one day be summoned to serve the crown in unexpected ways. Before they passed away, the late Queen and Prince Philip made sure she understood what they saw in her. Furthermore, I don't believe anyone is arguing that Camilla's children should have a share of the crown estate or royal titles. None of this operates that way. Tom Parker Bowles has made it very evident that he understands his role. But when you're a member of a blended family, where one side is essentially there due to marriage, and the other has centuries of tradition and legitimacies, and the matriarch of the family passes down her personal treasures in a way that further blurs that line, it is inevitable that music will evoke emotions. The question is whether those emotions remain personal or begin to impact future family dynamics. Louise's involvement will likely become more apparent. King Charles deals with his health issues, and the monarchy gets ready to hand over power to William's generation. To be honest, it's working for her to play the long game, maintaining her royal perks while creating her own identity. She has succeeded in being both relatable and regal, both a part of and distinct from the institution. She is threading a really challenging needle at the age of 21. It was evident to the late queen that she had such potential. Clearly, Prince Philip also noticed it. The fact that they made the decision to specifically mention it in their wills speaks volumes about their perception of the family's true strength. What are your thoughts on all of this? Was Queen Elizabeth correct to encourage Lady Louise in her musical endeavors? Or should the inheritance have been handled differently to prevent conflict with Camilla's side of the family? Is it just that Camilla's kids and grandkids are part of the family while being left out of the legacy objects that are so symbolic? And do you believe Louise will eventually work as a royal, perhaps playing a major role during William's reign? Since music is one of those circumstances where everyone can see the logic, but the emotions are still difficult, I'm genuinely interested in hearing your perspective. Leave a comment with your ideas. I read them, and if you thought my breakdown was fascinating, please make sure you are a Crown Watch subscriber and click the like button. We're keeping an eye on all of these royal dynamics as they evolve, and as the next generation takes over, there will be more to discuss.